Hello and welcome to another edition of DBE TV News. Thank you for tuning in to the weekly update on activities taking place in the basic education sector. We come to you on OpenView Channel 122, on the DBE YouTube channel, and of course we are also on BRICS TV Channel 509 Starset. My name is Tshegohatso Moagi. In the news this week, the Basic Education Department has made headway in introducing the three streams model to schools. Some schools are piloting these subjects. Find out more in this bulletin. Meanwhile, the Human Resources Development Council of South Africa held a skills summit highlighting the importance of having certain skills, especially in the education sector. A concern for the department is the dropout rate in schools, especially for learners in higher grades. There are various reasons for this, the pandemic being one of the major factors. With it being Women's Month, in an aim to empower female teachers, the department will be hosting a gender-based violence seminar to assist teachers who have been victims of sexual assault in the workplace. We also speak to the Mpumalanga Head of Department, Lucy Moyane, about her challenges and successes being in the basic education sector. She is one of 5 women in this position in the country. Remember, you can use any of our social media platforms to share your thoughts with us. On Twitter, @DBE_SA and @DBE TV News, Facebook, DBESA, Instagram, DBESA. You can use the hashtag DBE News. We start with some good news for learners. The world is always changing and things are no longer done in the same way. In a bid to ensure learners are well equipped for the future, the Basic Education Department has started implementing the three streams model into the curriculum. Historically, the South African education system focused mainly on the academic pathway in some instances. That has unfortunately led to dropouts and a high failure rate. With this model, the department believes it would provide differentiated offerings to learners and respond to the skills needed for the ever-changing world.
It's our one way of actually diversifying our curriculum offerings because we come from a past where in the main our curriculum has been mainly academic, and therefore this has actually contributed to a majority of learners dropping out, particularly between grade 9 and grade 11. Because of actually the limited choices that learners have always been offered in terms of choosing subject packages that are aligned to their interests, their aptitudes and abilities. So it is for that reason that we are introducing the three-stream model. So the additional 2 streams, as it were, are the vocational stream as well as the occupational stream. And we want to start the streaming from grade 10 upwards, grade 10 to grade 12.
But what does all this mean for learners who are interested in the three streams model?
If we talk about the streaming process, we are therefore talking about the guidance that we have to provide to our learners as they complete their grade 9. That is at the end of the primary school education. We therefore have to provide them guidance in terms of which learning pathway will be best suited for their interests, aptitudes, and abilities.
The phasing in of this model started a few years ago, and the department is pleased at how successful it is.
The vocational stream actually started in 2016 from grade 10, when we introduced the subjects that we called the technology subjects. The 3 technology subjects with 3 specializations each. The 3 key subjects of fields are the mechanical technology, electrical technology, and civil technology. And each of those will obviously have 3 areas of specialization in them. And then, of course, we added technical mathematics, technical sciences, so that these two are actually adaptations from the academic mathematics or pure mathematics, as well as academic physical sciences. Hence we have technical sciences, because it's got to be more applied. Because if you talk about the vocational and the occupational subjects, what actually characterizes them in the main, it's the content in terms of the practical components. So it's not mainly theoretical like you would find in academic subjects.
It's been a long time coming, and although the department has admitted that there aren't enough teachers, they were pleased at the response by schools to pilot these subjects.
Our request was that we needed to start with, say, about 10 schools per province to do the pilot of the vocationally oriented subjects for grade 8 and 9. And to our surprise, we actually got about 105. Gauteng and Western Cape gave us more than 10. I can tell you that Gauteng gave us 15 instead of 10. Western Cape actually gave us 23 instead of 10 schools. So in total, we have 105 schools that needed to start piloting the vocationally oriented subjects in grade 8 this year. And out of the 95 started with the pilot. The 10 that could not start this year are the schools that were selected by the Northwest province. So that's the only province where the pilot is not happening this year. But everything is afoot in terms of getting that province actually coming on board from 2022.
Meanwhile, the Human Resources Development Council of South Africa held a summit under the theme Skills Required for the 21st Century. The council is chaired by Deputy President D.D. Mabuza and managed by the Ministry of Higher Education and Training. During the summit, the Deputy President said the issue of young people dropping out at various points of their schooling career before receiving their matric needs to be addressed. The summit was attended by various stakeholders who ensured that skills development in the education sector is prioritized in the agenda.
This Human Resource Development Council conference today aims at ensuring that all the inputs that have been provided prior have been collated and put together, so that as the executive committee there is a program of agenda that is placed in front of the Human Resource Development Council that will be approved. There are quite critical areas that we deal with in terms of transforming the economy of the country. There's also quite a deeper sense of looking at our institutions to improve the skills, especially the technical vocational education and training institutions, the schooling system, the early childhood development, and ensuring that we have a capable state.
Stay tuned. After the break, we get details about the dropout rate, the reasons for this, and how the three streams model could be beneficial.
The August month is a very important month for the people of South Africa and the liberation of humanity as a whole. It is a month where we remember the heroic struggles of the women of our country, which contributed immensely in bringing about the freedom and democracy we enjoy today. It gives us an opportunity to reflect on how far we have gone in terms of the liberation of women in our country. But also it gives us the platform to reconnect with our history, to re-energize and really recommit ourselves that we will not rest until the women of our country are totally liberated. Our struggle, amongst other things that it seeks to resolve, are patriarchal relations of power. And that struggle requires all of us, men and women, to stand together and ensure that women of our country and the world at large are not treated as objects, but they enjoy equal opportunities, equal standing in society, together with their counterparts. So we really wish our women well during this month, but also indicate that this is a month for all of us to recommit to the struggle for women total emancipation.
Welcome back. Now, more than 750,000 learners have not returned to class, and this dropout rate remains a major concern for the Basic Education Department. The latest National Income Dynamics Study, Coronavirus Rapid Mobile Survey, has shown that there are many reasons for this. However, COVID-19 has had the biggest impact on learning and teaching. Our reporter Nandika Bierkes takes a closer look.
It's been a long and difficult year for learners who have had to adjust to rotational learning. This has led to some not being able to return to school, even when it was their turn to be in the classroom.
But if we look at, say, the percentage of 7 to 17-year-olds who are not attending school, that would be one way of thinking about dropout. And there, what we've seen is over time a steady decline in the numbers of children of that age group who are out of school over a 20-year period. But we've seen this increase in the last year or so due to the pandemic. The figures come from a survey called the NITS-CRAM survey, which is a representative sample of South African households. And that survey would indicate that there's been quite a dramatic increase so that we have maybe 3 times as many 7 to 17-year-olds not attending school. The big question is whether those are temporary dropouts or temporary non-attending school children who are planning on going back, or whose parents are planning on sending them back once things settle down, or whether these children are sort of permanently dropped out of school. That's a big question that we're not sure what will happen.
With the in-depth research done by the department, researchers have noted other reasons for learners not returning to school, this despite the COVID-19 pandemic.
But the reasons for dropout are quite complex. There are a lot of reasons. I like to think of them in 2 categories of reasons. Firstly, I think of the sort of underlying vulnerability to dropping out, which I see as largely caused by weak learning foundations. It's the issue that by the time children get to grade 10, 11, or 12, if they're not really well equipped, if they're not on track to complete matric, I think they are vulnerable to dropping out for a range of kind of trigger reasons. So that's the second category. And the triggers of dropping out are things like family responsibilities, the idea to go and look for work, to try to bring in some income to the household, just losing interest, losing motivation, becoming discouraged about their academic prospects. I think those are the kinds of complex reasons that trigger dropout. But the biggest predictor of dropout from earlier in life is your academic foundations, your learning to read, learning to do maths in primary school. If that is not achieved on time, that creates this vulnerability to dropping out. And so that's been with us for a long time. It's still with us. It's still partly the cause of the current dropout. But I think the big increase in dropout that we've seen in the last year or so is obviously due to the pandemic. It's not as if those underlying vulnerabilities suddenly got worse for some other reason.
The department has also recently announced an exit certificate, which could improve the career path of learners in school.
Yeah, so we know that roughly sort of 56 to 60% of youths obtain a National Senior Certificate or equivalent. I don't think it's more than about 2 to 5% of additional youths who complete a TVET qualification. I think we do need to do better at translating entries into TVET colleges into completing a qualification at a TVET college. That seems to be an area where we need to improve. But the details around TVET colleges, I think our colleagues in the Department of Higher Education and Training would have a better handle on some of those numbers and issues there. But it is one area where we need to improve, because not everyone is going to complete matric. And that's also where I think the DBE's focus on expanding and improving the implementation of the 3 streams model is an important thing to be focusing on. The introduction of a general education certificate, a GEC exam at the grade 9 level, to try to do a better job of channeling children into the different pathways, to give some children a qualification, a paper qualification, even if they don't get matric. That would fill a gap, in addition to all that we're doing to continually increase the numbers that complete matric and that complete bachelor passes and entry into university.
What then, according to Dr. Taylor, would encourage learners not to leave school without completing their matric?
The biggest thing that drives children's sort of sense of efficacy and interest is actually feeling like they are learning. And I think it's when you lose track and you start to feel lost and you fall behind in learning that you start to also believe it's not interesting. So I think so much boils down to just improving the quality of teaching and learning that we give children in the early grades. And again, it's one of those things that has been improving over time. You know, our performance and international assessments like TIMS, PIRLS and SUCMEC, as well as the numbers coming out of the matric exams over time has been steadily increasing, but we still have a problem of low and unequal education outcomes in primary school.
Dr. Taylor has also emphasized the importance of teacher training, and not just for new teachers entering the education system.
So teacher training, I guess, is broken down into pre-service training or initial teacher education, and then sort of in-service teacher training, continuous professional development opportunities. And I think both are really important because as teachers retire, more teachers come in, and it's important that we improve the foundation, the qualifications that they get. The younger cohorts, I think there's some evidence to suggest that some of the younger cohorts are actually coming in better equipped, but that needs to be a continual focus. But then many teachers are already in the system, and even for young cohorts, even if they've had an improved initial teacher education, they've got a 30+ year career ahead of them, and anyone needs continual professional development, continual learning. And so we do need to do a lot around helping teachers to better implement the curriculum. Teachers that are already in the classroom, we know that classroom and teaching practices are not on the whole optimal. There's a lot of room for improvement. And so effective forms of teacher training and support to teachers are really important to try to better implement the curriculum as it's envisaged.
The department has emphasized that in order to curb the learning losses and not have a generation that has not been to school, learners should return to class on a full-time basis if it is possible for the school to do so. Nandika Bukas, Johannesburg.
We'll be right back after the break when we find out more about the dynamics of being a woman in the basic education sector.
The Department of Basic Education is currently piloting the use of scripted lesson plans in the life orientation curriculum in school, including a section on comprehensive sexuality education. Not to be confused with sex education, CSE is a process of teaching and learning about the cognitive, emotional, physical and social aspects of sexuality within the curriculum.
The only thing that my mother told me was that don't play with boys. If only the parents could understand that these people are human beings and they're developing and they're growing and they're developing emotionally, physically, mentally. They want to experiment.
Through CSE, we give learners scientifically accurate, age-appropriate and culturally relevant content to equip them with knowledge, skills, attitudes and values that will empower them to realize their health, well-being and dignity. The LO curriculum has not changed, and the scripted lesson plan pilot in 5 provinces will continue in 2020. The Department of Basic Education. Every child is a national asset.
Welcome back. In an effort to get more teachers to speak out about their experiences when it comes to daily societal and work challenges, the Basic Education Department will be launching a seminar which speaks against gender-based violence. The seminar, a first for the sector, will take place at the end of August. It will assist teachers with what they need to do should they be sexually or otherwise violated at their places of work.
The seminar is all about sexual harassment and gender-based violence in the workplace. And we are holding this seminar focusing on abuse against educators. We are aware that there are learners who have been abused by educators, but this time we are focusing on educators because we know there are cases regarding sexual harassment and violence in the workplace, especially in the education sector, because we are receiving complaints from the educators themselves complaining to the minister. So we want those who are responsible to be held accountable for their acts.
There are concerns that teachers are keeping such incidents to themselves instead of reporting them. So the department has put measures in place to try curb these acts.
As the Department of Basic Education, efforts has been done to keep that barbaric acts in the sector, because it's too concerning to see that the people who you entrusted with care of learners, they are doing these barbaric acts to these learners, and you know that thing, it affects the well-being of a learner. And the learner is still young. He or she is going to grow with that thing. So it will disturb him or her. The department has done efforts. I'm going to mention all of them that has been done by the department. We have the standard procedures for employers of educators. Remember, in education, employer is the provincial head, not the national department, in terms of Section 3(1)(b) of the Employment of Educators Act. And then the employer can be SGB again. And then here I'm not mentioning about the private sector, because the private sector, there are employers also of those who are working at independent schools. So the protocol that I've mentioned, the standard operating procedure, it has been developed with the assistance of SACE, in consultation with the Education Labor Relations, the Department of Social Development, and the Department of Justice. It specified the roles of all the institutions I mentioned, how they are going to play their roles in assisting in keeping these acts, is number one. Number two, we have the ELRC Collective 3 of 2018. The collective agreement was signed to address the challenge that the employer had in handling sexual assault at the schools. So this collective agreement, it gives the arbitrator the power to deal with the matter of sexual violence that happened at the school. And then if that person has been found guilty, so that person cannot challenge that arbitration order. The only challenge that you can take, the route that you can take, is to go to labor court, meaning that the decision of the arbitrator is final. It's like a court order. And then the third one, it is the protocol for reporting and managing of sexual abuse and harassment in school. This one, it includes even public servants, not educators only. It's not focused on educators only. Even the visitors in the school, the service providers. So this one, it's a protocol that gives the districts, the schools, the guidelines on how to report these cases, how to handle these cases, where to go when you are facing these cases. And then the fourth one, the last one, is the government gazette that was published recently on the prevention of re-employment of educators who have been dismissed or who have been resigned, maybe running away from the charges. So this one, it gives the provincial department guidelines on how to appoint those educators when they want to come back in the system.
The seminar will be taking place on the 30th of August. Stay tuned to all DBE social media platforms for more details. August is commemorated as Women's Month in South Africa. So, let's get a better understanding of the women in our basic education sector. Born and bred in Winterveld, Lucy Moyane has expressed her love for education and teaching, even though she initially wanted to be a lawyer. Moyane is the HOD at the Mpumalanga Education Department, and she is one of 5 other women in this role across the country. The others are based in the Northern Cape, the Northwest, the Eastern Cape, and the Limpopo province. Moyane is the 11th child of 23 and says her parents were deeply passionate about education, and that led to her starting teaching at a young age. Our colleague Terence Kala sat down with Moyane to get to know her better.
I worked at university. I taught at university at the time. That was the University of Pretoria. I was the second African woman to be appointed at the University of Pretoria. I moved from there to the Department of Education, then responsible for African languages. Though I was appointed as the Deputy Director then for Sotho languages, because academically I am Setswana. That's really what I taught, what I studied as a student teacher. So in 1996, that's when I arrived, and you could tell that is when everything was happening in the education sector, the curriculum transformation process started at that time. So those moments for me are real key moments. At the Department of Education, I grew through the ranks from the Deputy Director, the CES, translated into CES. Then I became a director for school education. I became a director, a chief director, and then a deputy director general in Mpumalanga, the position that I've held for almost 15 years. I came here very young, but now you can see that I've grown here. But all those moments, there's a number of things that I can really indicate there. When I was at the National Department, all the transformative areas, the policy documents, the policies that we currently celebrate, I was instrumental in leading those processes. So even coming to Mpumalanga, there has been a number of positives, but I want to talk about the lows, because you're saying what are the lows? The lows particularly in my professional life. In 2009, we had a huge challenge, as the Department of Education in Mpumalanga, relating to the leakage of examination papers. I don't want to remember that period. But when I look back, that from that we have grown to where we are now a model for the country. We have been able to grow from those ashes. Our systems are tight now. And I can tell you that a lot of provinces are emulating what we have achieved. So in my professional life, I can really indicate that 2009 incident as a very, very low moment.
You mentioned something now in terms of where you've made massive improvements as well, but across the sector, as a female leader, where would you like to see better investment or better improvement to make sure that we can improve the entire system as a whole? So what would your vision be for the basic education sector as a whole?
For the department or for the sector, for me, the most important resource that we have is our teachers. And all investments needs to go into ensuring that we have good teachers. We have teachers that are competent, teachers that are capable. So yes, I agree that our teachers are well trained. When I look back now, we have more teachers that are well qualified than we had in those earlier years. But the competence still needs to be improved. So I believe that we need to put in place our structures that would make our teachers resilient, make our teachers innovative, make our teachers, can I say agile, adaptable also to situations. Education has a lot of women. You go to a school, there's a lot of women teachers, but we have very few of them in leadership. Our principals, our circuit managers, they are in the main males. And I believe that for the sector to improve, we really need to groom and mentor a lot of female teachers so that they can become leaders in the sector. And I believe that once we have done that, all the challenges, the little challenges that we face, such as our children not being able to read at the appropriate levels, lagging behind maybe our counterparts in Africa and in the world in terms of our reading capabilities, or even in terms of technology in education. If we have women leaders, I'm definitely sure we will be able to move quick. Why am I saying that? It's because that I know that with women, once they believe in something, they make sure that it happens.
You can catch the full interview with HOD Lucy Moyane on the DBE YouTube channel. That's how we end this week's roundup on Channel 122 on OpenView, on YouTube and on BRICS TV Channel 509 StarSat. Remember to stay safe and to comply with all the COVID health protocols. Until next time, it's goodbye from myself, Tsehohajo Moagi, and the DBE TV News team. Thanks for watching.